Okay, we've done the geopolitical. We're going to get back to all that. We're going to get back to the pestilence. We're going to get back to the famine. We're going to get back to the war because that's the age you live in. Remember, there are decades, and if you're of a certain age, this will strike home. There are decades in which nothing happens, and then there are weeks in which decades happen. You're living in this period right now. All of you people out there that said, "Oh, if I was in the Revolution, yeah, I'd have a musket. I'd be out there. If I was in the Civil War, I'd be doing right wars in World War II. I'd be storming Normandy." Okay, now is your moment, right? Your personal rendezvous with destiny. Everybody says, "What should I do? Right, should I do?" Right now, just get as smart and as focused as possible. As smart and as focused as possible. Go to every site, get every piece of information. Understand what's going on, the signal from the noise. Do not be distracted by the mainstream media chasing rabbits and doing all this nonsense every night they do on TV. Get focused about what the reality is. The Chinese Communist Party is at war with the world. They're at war with humanity. And they're supported by they're devils and they're supported by demons. Okay? We're going to take our time and we're going to expose all the demons that have propped them up and our fellow travelers in the finance world, in the corporate world, in the political world, in the media world. These devils, these demons have supported these devils, and these devils have destroyed the Chinese people. This atheistic, materialistic communism, this dictatorship has stripped the humanity of these people. When you hear their voices, you hear their stories, it's heart-rending. Okay? This is the great action of our age, right? You can't avoid it. I tell you how you can't avoid it. You may not have an interest in this virus. This interest has a virus in you. And I want to quote from the medical personnel head of the United States military, permanently disqualified. You get this virus, you're permanently disqualified. You cannot serve your country. Now, that permanent disqualification, you know why? We have no idea what this bug is. We have no idea what this virus is. But once it's in your body, bad stuff's going to happen. Okay? Maybe it doesn't happen today. But when they say you're permanently disqualified, right? What are they telling us? And let's go to now, there's another controversy. And this is about the apparatus, right, that surrounds President Trump, and he's trying to make it work. By the way, we're trying to get Jason Trennert on, and hopefully if we get him on to talk about what today meant as far as and these stock. One of the things about the stock market, they're so weighted to the big tech companies. The other thing we're seeing is the evisceration of the little guy. When we open this economy back up, we had Elliot Rabin on yesterday for just one. We're going to try to have more and more and more, but the concentration in these indexes of Google and Amazon and Apple, right? You're seeing a concentration of power here, concentration on the retail side. So we don't even know. The small guys got to exist. That's what's built it. The distribution of opportunity, the distribution of income, the distribution of jobs and all that. That's why this was – Steve Cortez calls it a striver's economy, that non-high school graduates are making more than college graduates on a percentage basis as far as increases. The workers more than the bosses. This was all the Trump revolution from the bottom up, right? It took years. It's all been wiped out. Going to try to get some of it back, been wiped out by the Chinese Communist Party. Right? So saith the Secretary of State, number one in his class at West Point, former director of the Central Intelligence Agency, former, number two guy in the House Intelligence Committee, a guy who spent his entire life served in the military, served in the Army. I think he's a tank. I think he's a cavalry officer, armor. And the President of the United States, Commander in Chief, the guy sits in the same chair as Abraham Lincoln and Franklin Delano Roosevelt and Ronald Reagan, three guys who knew how to run a war and win a war, right? And let's throw Wilson in there too. So where exactly today are we on this opening stand? The CDC, and we talked about the CDC a month ago, and we talked about they were working on, the president had guidelines. We had this phase 1, 2, and 3. The mainstream media is in full meltdown. They're not saying anything about what he said at the Resolute Desk yesterday about Beijing. They're not saying that. They got to run around because it's all about making him look bad. And this is the problem I got with Zucker and these guys. Have the apparatuses. We got to pull the country together. I'm not saying don't do investigative reporting. But you got to focus on what's important. Right now, the CDC thing, I realize, and let's get into the details. And you were the first one to mention they were working on a 20-page report or a 30-page report a couple of weeks ago. We talked about this, right? And this was going to be promulgated at some period of time. And a decision is made to waive off that?
Well, so yeah, let's go and break this down. So we've talked about this a couple of weeks ago. This is not the news that they're having some reopening guidelines is nothing new. That's been publicly reported.
But they treat it as a big reveal.
Yes, they treat it because here's what happened. So this is typical. Somebody didn't get picked, and so now they're having a total meltdown. I mean, that's just all it is. They're taking their ball and they're going home and they're trying to spike it. So CNN, this 6 a.m., 7 a.m., 8 a.m., everyone leading with this AP exclusive U.S. shelves detailed guide to reopening the country. And everyone's going right to the pig pile. President Trump, there's this great plan. It's on reopening. He's taking it. It's terrible. Now, some of you who are listening saying, well, wait a minute, Jason, when you were talking about your 5 points that you laid out on Tuesday or even on Wednesday, point number 3 was stronger federal role in working with states to reopen. 100%, and I stand by that.
That sounds like the CDC. That sounds like it would be nice to have a CDC plan in there.
Yes. So, but let's go to this. So two things can be true at the same time. The White House could have easily made this go away by saying, you know what? There's some good ideas that are in there that are already being incorporated into other aspects, but this document plays outside of its lane in talking about reopening guideline or gating procedures that we're doing at a state-by-state basis. So we're not doing this document in its entirety. Has some good ideas, but this has never been approved to go out. End of story. Like that's a pretty straightforward. But instead, since the White House didn't really say anything about it all, everyone's kind of going to the scandal. So let's kind of separate the signal from the noise here. The actual guide, they said it's a 17-page document, and this thing's pretty milquetoast. Like what it is, it's what's been publicly put out there are 7 of those 17 pages, and they're slides. Reopening youth programs and camps during the COVID pandemic, reopening childcare programs, reopening faith communities, reopening mass transit. Even to the mass transit one, though, like it's some pretty basic stuff like alternate rows in the buses. So we're not exactly coming out with like, wow, I mean, that's just right up there with don't eat yellow snow. But then the one that actually I looked at because I'm just tired of ordering Uber Eats or making the same stuff at home every day, reopening restaurants and bars during the COVID-19 pandemic. And so I was like, okay, let's go through here and see what they're talking about. And we know that a lot of this report didn't get put out because there's some good tips. So for example, like riding in an Uber and a taxi, have a window down or partially open so all the germs in the air don't necessarily stay. Okay, those are small little things. It's nothing that's going to go and magically stop the spread of coronavirus, but that wasn't actually in these slides, but that's in the written part that was not released. They said when you go to restaurants and if you're waiting, they give you those buzzers. They said get rid of that and just have an app on your phone so then you're not handing something around. Okay, helpful tip, but small. I mean, we're not going to have a massive COVID outbreak because someone goes to Outback Steakhouse and when you're standing outside, with your buzzer, then you hand it to the next person and they magically catch the Rona. That's not going to happen. But I want to break down. Let's go into the reopening restaurants and kind of go through this. So there are 3 phases, again, and each one at the bottom, it's essentially, they call it a decision tree. It's not a decision tree. It's like 3 or 4 check marks, and then, any no's, then don't go to the next one. So it's a decision tree makes it sound like, this is your, use the nuclear football. When do you start punching in the codes? No, this is not a decision tree, stupid.
When do we punch CCP in the nose, right? You got the no, yes, keep going.
So let's go through the first. Should you consider opening? Number 1, is it a restaurant or bar in a community that no longer requires significant mitigation? Number 2, will reopening be in compliance with state and local orders? 3, will you be ready to protect employees at higher risk? Okay, so any of those are no. Don't pass go or collect $200. Otherwise, go to the next one. Are recommended safety actions in place? Promote healthy hygiene, such as hand washing, okay, and covering your face, okay? Intensify cleaning, sanitization, and ventilation, okay? Ensure social distancing, such as drive-through, curbside pickup, increase spacing of tables. They don't put, at least in the slides, they don't put the number, but apparently in the written document, they say 6 feet. That's why I want to see the written document. Train all staff on safety actions. Okay, so if there's no no's, then you go to the third and final. Is ongoing monitoring in place? Check for signs and symptoms of employees. Encourage employees who are sick to stay home. Plan for it an employee gets sick. Regular communication. Monitor staff absences. Be ready to close if there are increased cases. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the entire.
This is Captain Obvious.
This is Captain Obvious sitting on your forehead. This reopening restaurants and bars during the COVID-19 pandemic. And I just read to you every single bullet in every gating procedure for restaurants and bars. This is the biggest nothing burger, but if you go to the absolute
No,
fakes,
it's been on fire since the AP came out with the story.
If
It's
you
like
go-
the biggest scoop and the biggest exclusive they'd ever had.
Here's the one other thing, too, and I want to go back to this, and I caught this in the CNN broadcast this morning. The part that they didn't release, they go to specific things like they say, don't open the gyms, don't open the salons. They go to a number of just clamp down, do not go and open these for a number of things that have already been done or that were never closed in the first place. So that's a reason right there why you wouldn't go and put this out. Why the federal government go and put this out when so many places say never closed those particular things? Because that's not the job of how do you stay safe going forward in reopening. Because look, there are some good ideas, and I do think this.
Okay, but here's, and I want to, Raheem, jump in here with because you guys are the communication strategists. Here's what I don't get when I saw the AP story, because clearly what they're trying to drive is the institution of CDC that has always taken quote unquote the lead in Ebola and all these other things. So you normally see CDC, Tom Frieden, and all these guys out there. So it's the CDC. By the way, the same CDC who totally dropped the ball on the testing. 100% on Redfield, these guys, 100%. When the president turned to them, they go, we got it. And January 31st, we got this. All the CNBC and these guys, MSNBC, are all over Trump on the lost February. Hey, he turned to CDC, said, do it. Why? Because clearly the thing is that Trump's incompetent and a crazy man and trying to kill more people by opening up, and CDC is the paragon of trying to protect you. Why is Redfield and CDC not out in front of this, even in the story saying, hey, this is something we're working on. It's a preliminary. It's not that, but we've devolved it to the governors, and they got this, and we'll give some overall guidance. Why is he not in the first paragraph? This is because they had to check to the AP, who is a legit organization, very legit. They go to CDC and say, we've got this. Give us a response.
Yeah, and look, if I were at the White House right now, I'd go and say on the record. I'd say, on the record, Jason Miller, White House comm staffer, says this document sucks. It doesn't tell us anything. President Trump took one look. This doesn't count as a reopening procedure.
Exactly.
He said it was trash. Whoever put this together is a loser. I want real things that will help people.
Is your government, is your tax dollars paying for this? I mean, Redfield should have said that, hey, this is some preliminary thing. We're working. It's not up to our standards. It's not thing, and we've decided we've devolved that back to the governors. The governors have got all this, and we're here to help. Here's our number.
Right. Now, to be clear, I do think that a guide like this for helping people know that there's some Roberts rules of, okay, we know about the 6 feet, but are there some other
But this doesn't even raise the level of paint by numbers. No. That's my point. And yet the media is making this like it's literally the holy grail.
Right.
That the whole solution, because you know why? It's the branding. Because people are not going to read down into the details. Nobody except for the war room guys are going to go through this because none of the media went through it. Only you're going to go through it. All they're selling is the brand of the CDC. And every broadcaster are the same way. The CDC, who normally always takes the lead in this, right?
Yeah, I mean,
and this is President Trump. He's winging it, right? He's winging it. He's put CDC back in a box.
I mean, really, does the Sioux City Unified School District really need to know that if encourage any student who is sick to stay home? Like, whoa, thank you, CDC.
These are these types of revelations that make it that makes the $5 trillion federal budget all worth it.
Do you have an MD on your name? Wow.
Here's something else, too, that is quite interesting to me. The CDC has been fumbling the ball on their guidance since day one. You intrepid reporters out there, go look into the relationship of the people who got the initial contract to make the test with the current members of the CDC. I guarantee you there's a story there, people.
We're going to bring this back up when we return. War Room Pandemic. # War Room Pandemic. Jump in here, guys. We'll be back in a second.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Just so make sure we don't skip over this, the issue that Jack Maxey tied together the world famine and then what's happened here in the United States, brought to you by the Chinese Communist Party. The number, Jason, you talked about a second ago about women. Remember, women are the chief operating officer of the American family. Okay, you got to get to the women. The women are the teachers at Harvard Business School, the key decision-making unit, the DMU, decision-making unit. That would be the American woman who's the chief operating officer of the American family. That polling number is the type of thing that starts now, becomes a big deal in November. That's one you got to watch for.
And look, a 40% of households with kids under the age of 18 being concerned about food issues during this. I mean, that's staggering for the United States. I mean, the normal number is pretty. I want to say the normal number is somewhere like the 20 or 30. So you have a lot of people, and look, you have a lot of kids. Let's just be honest, who rely on free government breakfast and free government lunch to have some food. I mean, there are a lot of us that have it together. We have a lot of kids from either broken homes or from homes where they just don't have the money, that they don't have balanced food. I mean, that's why I always disagree with my conservative friends and say the school lunch stuff is a vitally important program. Someone who was on it part of the time when they were a kid, this is an important safety net. But 40%, that's well beyond people families who traditionally are facing this.
So, in separating out the signal from the noise, I want to get away from the CDC and also Redfield. Where is Redfield? You know, people talk about the Trump doesn't turn to the CDC thing. He's got to enforce his will on things. They completely blew, and we'll have more on this topic. They completely blew the testing, right? Let's just be honest. The President Trump made a decision in January 31st to block the travel from China, but also turned, as we all know, and said, "What we got to do? One is testing. Oh, who does that? CDC. We got this, boss. Right? We got this. They've been working on it in January." Complete airball, not even a brick, right? Didn't even get to the backboard. Complete airball, right? That's all on Redfield, right? And now this with the thing, a work in progress, and now it's like all day long they're going to hammer. He's got to step forward and become a player in this thing, right? Not just he's a static unit right now. He's a static display, as we call it.
One thing I would also say is these things that have been a problem with the CDC, NIH, and everything that we've been complaining about all along, I think we got to give some credit for Donald Trump's leadership. He never betrayed or pointed the finger at these. And, we've done it to a certain extent. But I got to say, I think the guy has had their six all along. And I'm a little bit shocked when I see some of the snarky comments come out of them when you realize that he really has been protecting them.
Next week, let's talk about what next week's going to be. Is going to be Fauci on one day, and then I think we should have a special Tony Fauci Monday, right? We'll highlight Dr. Fauci. But we've got the team around it, the administrative state. And deconstruction administrative state is not get rid of the administrative state. It's to basically take it down to its most efficient, effective functions and make it more entrepreneurial. You've seen here, I think the administrative state shoot one brick, either an airball, a brick after the other, right? Jason, let's pivot back to the 5 because I think that these are quite powerful as a way to get your head around how do we do this.
Yeah. And again, the reason why we lay these out is because we're moving towards this reopening and people are being bombarded with information. We see the news every morning, the market's up, the market's down. How does this impact me? The cover of The Economist this week has the 90% recovery, saying that the economy is never going to get back to 100. We're going to have some permanent changes going forward. And there's some merit to that argument. But number one, so let's go through the 5 points. This is for a successful reopening. Define recovery. What does a recovery look like, both in health terms and with regard to economic terms? Here's what we can get back to. Here's what the improvements are going to look like. Here's what we can do. Because right now, look, we're never going to go back.
And you want to set that out, not in some verbal paint. You want to actually set that in a set of metrics to talk about here's what success looks like, or here's the outcomes we're trying to drive the program to.
I don't think you have to go to the exact numbers because then it's a bit of you're negotiating against yourself. You're saying if we hit this or we don't, because there are things that are going to change. But look, people have to realize that we are never going to go back to January 30th, for example. There are things that are going to be permanently changed, but some aspects will be temporary. Some aspects will be permanent, but here's what we have to go and start to tell people when we get back to, we're going to get back to how things were largely, but we got to define recovery. What does that look like? Because if people are just waiting, when are things going to get back to 100%, 2019 normal? Okay, well, that's not coming. It's just the world has changed. Number 2, make clear who really is at risk. This is a disease that is affecting people disproportionately. It's seniors, it's people with comorbidities, it's people who with poor health care or don't have access to health care and haven't been checked for these things. That's who the communities. You look at the disproportionate
Except
level.
now I'm permanently disabled. I'm permanently disqualified if I got it.
Well, this is
Wasn't that
new.
a little bomb from the DOD?
This is
hey
new
Esper.
wrinkle.
Hey Esper, Secretary Esper. I think is doing a great job. See, this is the thing. This is the thing that if that happens, I think somebody ought to walk into the president. Hey, Mr. President, I got a Secretary Esper's online too. Wants to just run something by you before they put it out in the MIPCOM press release.
One thing interesting, the same day that they released this about disqualification for having had COVID-19, they did send the commander of the Roosevelt, the old commander of the Roosevelt, back stateside from Guam. So it doesn't look like he's getting his command back.
Or the
Yikes.
command of the Roosevelt, yeah.
So the number one, define recovery. Number two, make clear who really is at risk, as I just went and broke down. I'd add to that, look, when we talk about undernourished kids, or we talk about those who don't have access to food, things like that, that's actually, I would put that just as much as a senior who's in a nursing home, someone who doesn't have access to food because of the shutdown. That would be someone who's really at risk. Well, we need to identify that because it is disproportionate in who is impacted. That's why we have so many listeners who are saying, well, in my neck of the woods, none of this stuff is happening. Well, right, because it's different where you are than Manhattan. So reopenings are going to look different, and you shouldn't be under the same standard that people or strict lockdown that say people in Manhattan. Number three, I think we do need a stronger federal role in working with the states to reopen. That does not mean the one size fits all. Here's the government saying what you have to do.
Are you playing back? So you think you would agree that you want the CDC to have not this, but to have something meaningful to act as guidance to
100%. 100%. Because if here's what you want. You don't want.
and you're not going to lose the federalism argument. You're saying there's still the guys going to do it. We want to put in some guidance that can direct you to direction so everybody kind of flows in the same direction.
Yeah, because here's the other thing too. You also want to have some of these in place to make sure that people are able to say when they do ultimately get that lawsuit, hey, we followed the guidelines. We did the smart things. We did the things that were asked of us, and we're able to sign off on all these. And so, look, we went and did this, so you can't come to us and say that we were negligent in our opening. We're smart. We followed the guidelines.
You know, one group that we haven't asked the question of concerning this liability is the insurance companies, because I'm about 99% sure they're going to reject all of this on an act of God basis, as they do in most things like this. So I'd really love to, if there's any insurance brokers out there or people who are tight with the thing, what is the perspective from the people who are actually going to have to pay these bills?
But look, I do think – so let me give you where I think that there is the stronger federal role, and this was actually in that the written part of the 17-page document. Okay, the buffet's got to go. I mean, it's just that's just look, I've always loved myself. Go to the MGM casino and get yourself a good buffet. Those are gone. I mean, the buffets are gone. I mean, that's just and there's for franchisees, there's going to be a massive
Should we
issue.
short Golden Corral?
Well, first of all, look at their customer base. That's a whole other conversation. But I mean, even take a look at this is take it from a franchisee issue. Take Subways or Chipotle's where you have kind of the conveyor belt type process. Okay, well, they're going to have a real reckoning. And I talked to one person who's kind of involved in this space, and they said, well, there's actually a debate because some people within the franchisee world say people can see how the food's being prepared and that everyone's following the standards and they know that it's being done. Other people say, wait a minute, could someone hurl a sneeze over the top and the whole place gets wiped out? I mean, that's a decision for, just what those. So I do think the stronger federal recommendations with some helpful tips, not things like monitor if your employees are gone, which are idiotic.
By the way, the whole place gets wiped out. You don't need to sneeze over the sneeze guard for that to happen. You got to touch the salt shaker, and
Right.
the napkin dispenser. That's gonna wipe a place out if this is the case. Sneeze in an employee's
Look,
face.
it could be the doorknob,
Right.
I mean, that's number 4, split off that scientific and medical task force, make them be responsible for their own numbers. I'm glad President Trump backed off of that.
But he said, I didn't like this way he said it was because it's so popular. It's either effective or not effective. The popularity of it's irrelevant. What I did like, he said, hey, we're going to add in the implication, maybe subtract from some of the team, right? He's going to add people as it goes on. Hopefully they bifurcate so they have an economic briefing and they have over in the EOB or HHS have the technical scientific briefing.
Yeah, and do it the same kind of boring, rudimentary way that Cuomo does it. Just like going back to what Mayor Giuliani told us back when we were doing the Saturday shows and we had him on those twice in a row of have the medical guys come out there. Here are the numbers. Here's the trends. Here are the states that we're watching. Here are some of the additional guidelines we've updated with CDC and to go through it. And then the fifth and final point, and I love President Trump doing the Arizona trip, but President Trump, his best use right now of his time, he's to be the face of a safe and successful economic reopening. Have him spend his time on economic stuff and being the cheerleader in chief or going to the rah-rah, we're going to get our American groove back. Have him do that. And again, let the science guys do their thing.
Okay, hashtag War Room Pandemic, at War Room 2020, at War Room Pandemic. Also, talk about how they should watch this on Pluto.
Yeah, Pluto, the app. It's on so many different things, and it's a fantastic app.
We want everybody to go there.
I do
and
not
get it on
work for Pluto. I'm not being paid by Pluto. I just find it fantastic. I
Well,
use
here's
it on
the
my
best-
rowing machine.
It's the best way to watch this.
You can watch it on your Roku, on your Apple device, on your Google device, everything. So Pluto's great. You find America's Voice on Pluto. And when we come back, Steve, I'd like to read you some poetry.
Okay, we'll do some poetry when we get back, and also some Chinese propaganda from the CCP. The propaganda war, information war against America, next.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Okay, are we doing Aeschylus in the Oresteia, or Seven Against Thebes, or something in the Western tradition?
We're doing one of our hashtag War Room Pandemic listeners who says, Raheem, you inspired me to write a Bannon haiku. And here it is, guys. Sandy hair on fire. Another jar of caffeine. Commies are pounded.
It's genius.
I kind of like it.
What do you mean it's genius? That's going to tweet that out. That's
Okay, well,
genius.
I'm doing an open call. We want all your haikus. Hashtag War Room Pandemic.
You
The
know-
themes, Jack?
CCP virus, CCP Nazis,
Yep.
and
Quislings?
Quislings, and Maxi the jackass on herd immunity.
You know, whoever wrote that, though, should get the Nobel Prize. The Nobel Prize.
The
And that'd be
Nobel
a-
Prize.
Yeah, Nobel Prize for literature.
By the way, it's now Jack permanently disqualified Maxi. Okay, the permanently
I'll do one more thing as well,
Yeah,
and you
sure.
jump in here. I don't know. I really want to. You tell me how you want to go with this. Okay, so if you go to warroom.org/newsletter, you can sign up every day. The team puts together just the top links you need to know, the top stories, the most important things, the links to the shows from the day, and sometimes we throw in something extra in there as well. It's very valuable for people. People tell me all the time that it helps them navigate around the issues on this thing. So if you go to warroom.org/newsletter and you sign up, I'm going to send a free signed copy. And Steve, do you want me to do Enoch or do you want to do one of yours?
We'll start with Enoch, and we'll get to ours.
Okay, so and by the way, if you're already signed up, you'll be included in this as well.
The reason we got to do Enoch, we got like 10,000 of them back in the garage.
well, demand's high. You know, you gotta get them out. So
It's a fabulous book, by the way.
warroom.org/newsletter
Talks about another great piece of Western poetry. The River of Blood. The River of Blood came from the Aeneid, correct?
And Enoch's own poetry actually bears reading. Little bit derivative, but
No,
it's
but
okay.
he's a stunning individual.
So warroom.org/newsletter. You sign up, and I'm going to draw a lucky winner. I'll communicate with you and send you a signed copy of my
Look,
latest book.
in War Room Pandemic, we handled the pandemic, we handled the economic crisis it triggered, we handled the financial crisis that came off of that, and then the geopolitics of it, and eventually get to the politics of all this. Okay, so those 5 things. Remember, this show is made for the deplorables. That's why we do it, because you're the greatest force for good in the world, right? This is why we spend years, working this, right? And now I can tell you 3 groups, and this is why it's so important to get the newsletter. Remember, it's all free. We're not shaking you down for any money. We don't want your money. We want you to keep your money. Right, we want you to keep your money. We know you don't have any because it's been taken from you by the Chinese Communist Party. We do not, and I will never ask any deplorable for a nickel. I don't believe in it. I've never believed in it. I think it's all part of the racket. Okay, we're not racketeers. We figure out how to get this thing financed. Okay, so it's all free. The whole show's free. All of that. We're actually going to be talking about some sponsors. We're actually going to get some sponsors that are going to come in the next week or two. Believe it or not. Guys are not interested in contracts in China. I will tell you that.
Well,
that have kind of written that off, right?
Here's something that the viewers, the deplorables, the people who run towards the sound of the guns might appreciate. Governor Cuomo has just announced that all those healthcare workers who came to New York to help with the surge are going to have to pay New York state taxes. And he says, we're not in a position to provide any subsidies right now because we have a $13 billion deficit. Now, here's the real kicker. Even though the state government asked thousands of people to come to New York from out of state to help fight, they will have to pay New York state taxes even on other income they might have made from their home states while they were in New York.
Okay, folks, listen. Now, here's the way you got to think about this. No good deed goes unpunished, right? But that's what you're – come on, you're deplorable for a reason. The whole thing always comes down to you. It's always on your shoulders, right? You look at after the revolution. What's the biggest issue we had after the revolution? Stiffen the troops, right? Almost had a revolt up in Newbury. Remember, anybody that ever serves, you never end up really getting paid. The bonus army in the 20s, the whole thing is always about, the whole issues after the Civil War. Hey, remember, if you ride to the sound of the guns – you're doing it for that inner work on yourself, right? That's because of who you are. And remember, just write this down. I'm always going to get stiffed. Okay, Cuomo, no good deed goes unpunished. Right? I mean, this thing, not just that. What I like about Cuomo, hey, not that we're going to carve back on the stuff you're making in Alabama, right? Just a little something for the effort. Right? A little something for the effort.
By the way, have you been reading the National Pulse? That is literally the first sentence in Vinny's write-up of this thing. No good deed goes unpunished.
I can just translate. The National Pulse is my new favorite site.
And by the way,
because you had the fourth turning on there with my favorite picture of the fall of empire.
Thank you very much. When you go through this story as well, you realize that actually during Hurricane Sandy, the governor then waived the state tax on emergency workers for 90 days. We're not doing it here. Why? Because who were the emergency workers who came in here? Samaritan's Purse.
Oops. Okay, no good deed goes unpunished. Okay, now listen, here's the thing for the deplorables. We know the three groups of people that definitely listen to the show nonstop and deconstruct it. The trading desk, right? The news producing teams, and Chinese intelligence. So if you want to be the first in your neighborhood to get the scoop, just get the newsletter, come to the site, listen to the podcast, and push it out. You want action? Here's some action. Get all your friends and neighbors to listen to this. It'll become just as addictive to them. Hashtag War Room Pandemic, and we want to welcome all the Democrats. You got three hardcore partisans here. We try to be as even-handed as possible, particularly the Bernie folks, right? That we're going to hear, and we're going to get more of the kind of deconstruction of these populism side and the nationalism side, right? Because everybody's saying, "Oh, all the problems here are nationalism." But I want to go back. So remember, the trading desk, the news producers, and the intel apparatus of the Chinese Communist Party that kind of go through all the details here. Speaking of that, on information warfare, let's go to now you're being constantly attacked, constantly bombarded, constant misdirection plays. But I want to reset here and just make sure, because you had two big kills in the news business. Back in Breitbart, it's always about getting scalps, right? You got two big scalps. And these were told, and this is, remember, the whole rest of the media is trying to own the libs. We're trying to own the Chinese Communist Party. We don't care about the libs, right? That's a third order thing. We're trying to own the Chinese Communist Party. And they're running dogs throughout the world. And there's a lot of running dogs, and there's a lot of people on the payroll. Mr. Raheem Kassam, in his first week of focusing on this, got two. Let's go through our London School of Economics. Let's go through the other one, how you exposed it, and then how they tried to cover up again even afterwards.
So the first thing to note here is there's a lot more to come, because these first two shots has actually led us to find a lot more about what's going on in this CCP propaganda information war.
Battle space,
absolutely. So the first one was when CGTN, which is the CCP global media entity broken out of London originally, published this guy, Hanan Hussein. an article entitled "Here's Why Steve Bannon Can't Be Trusted." So, hello, we look into that. Obviously, gets our attention. Thank you very much. And we look into it. And we find out that he is a security analyst, or so he says, at the London School of Economics. Now, despite what you might know about the London School of Economics and its Fabian socialist founding, it is actually still a very well-respected place. I think it's the West Wing, the television show that the president always talking about his London School of Economics credentials. It's a respected brand, or at least it was until I caught them taking Gaddafi's money about 10 years ago. But hey. Turns out, however, when we went to the London School of Economics and said, hey, who's this guy and why is he working for the CCP while he works for you? They washed their hands of him, said he wrote a couple of blogs for us a couple of years ago. He's not a security analyst. We don't even have any security analysts. So first and foremost, you catch the CCP in a lie right there. Fraudulent credentials, fraudulent individuals on their website, pumping out op-eds by the way, in English, aimed at you, ladies and gentlemen. This isn't aimed at the Chinese audience. This isn't aimed in the East. This is aimed at you. It is to swing your opinion on the CCP, your neighbors, your children, their teachers. We'll get on to the teachers in a little bit as well, maybe next week when we have more information out about how they're targeting American teachers as well. And it led us on to more. Tom Fowdy, who you've heard me talk about quite a lot over the last couple of days. This Oxford and Durham graduate, he has published dozens of op-eds. And I don't mean op-eds like, hey, on the one hand this, on the other hand that. No. These op-eds are like, this is why the CCP is better than America. This is why the Chinese Communist Party rules, dude. And Tom Fowdy has this bizarro background of registering a North Korean travel agency, effectively. He wants to
North Korea
wants people from his hometown in Sunderland in the United Kingdom to travel to North Korea.
President Trump did say the beaches there were going to be great. remember the film?
That's where that's where Kim was holding up.
Exactly.
I think by the way, I think he was just watching Tiger King, just like everyone else. But we'll get back to that.
But Fowdy's
shelter in place.
Fowdy's work is absolutely extraordinary and not in a good way. He has dozens and dozens of videos, op-eds, quote unquote analysis. And this is like, by the way, you see this, you had in London during maybe between 2014 and 2017, a lot of these institutional people, the think tank types, the analysts, low-level types going on Russia Today, right? Why? Because Russia Today was the only place that would put them on. And the establishment freaked out about it. Oh, they're Russian stooges, they're patsies, pointing their fingers, lighting them up, saying, you'll never work in this town again. Not a peep so far on people who are doing the same thing for the CCP.
This is the whole thing about it. This is the whole thing about the impeachment. What did we say on war room impeachment on and on and on and on again? Russia's a sideshow. The Ukraine's a sideshow to a sideshow. You look at opportunity costs. I know some people say, hey, we'd like to have more war room 2020. Pandemic is war room 2020. The president's being weighed and measured every day. You want to talk about 2020? Don't run around like all these. Look, if you can get enough about Tara Reid on the other shows. We don't do that. Okay, we got other great people who are doing that and are interested in that. We're not interested in that. What we're interested in is that 41% that said they got moms that said they got food insecurity right now. Trust me, that's a much bigger element than Tara Reid. Signal from the noise. This is the signal. You're in the signal room, not in the noise room. You want that? Go to noise. That I got no problem with it, and you should do that to keep up speed. And other people do it great. But this is the signal, right? And that's why the whole Russia thing, opportunity cost. The first thing they teach at Harvard Business School is just not the cost, it's the opportunity cost. It's what you could have done in the time, with the action, with the money. The opportunity cost right now to the United States of America of this $6 trillion bazooka we've hit into the asset classes to keep us from imploding. And we're going to get into the whole thing, was it fair or not? And the little guy's getting screwed and the big guy's getting taken care of. Hey, that $6 trillion just blown out to build infrastructure in this country to do that, you'd be living in paradise, okay? The reason you're not in your shelter in place on a great May day is because of the Chinese Communist Party. And part of that reason is all this nonsense of running around for years and years and years about the Russia and all the Russia stuff and the Russia and making such a big deal. And what Thingamajig's book said it was $100,000 worth of Facebook ads.
Right. And just one more thing on this real quick. As we go through these people, these useful idiots for the CCP, I want all of them to know that not only are we going through all this, we're finding out how this stuff happened in the first instance. Who's paying for these Chinese degrees coming out of Oxford University? Who's paying for them? We're going to put in the Freedom of Information request, and we'll tell you who's paying for them.
We're going to turn in 1 second with War Room Signal in a moment.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Live from the nation's capital with almost 7.5 million downloads on the podcast, which is the way the secondary way everybody watches it because it's distributed everywhere. Really want to thank the folks at G News and GTV for the subtitle in Mandarin just to rub the nose of the Chinese Communist Party in this every day so they can watch it. And on a day when 75, I think we're quickly passing 75,000 on the death toll. Remember, only three numbers count: death toll, unemployed, and cash CCP owns it. President Trump told us yesterday they're responsible. Couldn't have been clearer, right? They're responsible. Mike Pompeo backed it up today. 75,000.
We're about 300 shy off, yeah.
So almost 75,000 dead. We're 33 million out of work, although we may net, Raheem tells me it may be as many as 5 million actually that back to work. We're going to find out tomorrow. Tomorrow's going to be the April. We're going to have tomorrow I got a great show to guess. We'll tweet them out overnight. We're going to have a bunch of people talking about the economy, particularly this Great Depression level numbers, all about the Chinese Communist Party. So we don't want to make light of anything. However, we have to realize and people have to embrace where we are as a culture. On an absolutely stunning day, which would make a fabulous, fabulous Thursday at the ballpark here, in a fantastic ballpark. I'm not a Nationals fan, but I really like the fact of how the city has really, and people in this area have really embraced that team, and particularly their grit and determination of what they did last year in Major League Baseball, and to think that we don't even have a season, right? And people are what we're doing. We're watching. ESPN is now. Is it Korean baseball? Baseball. Yeah. If you've been over Korea, they get intense. I think it's 7 or 8 teams. It's not quite as intense as the Japanese baseball, but it's pretty intense.
Yeah, and do want to remind people that if you do have a gambling problem, go to 1-800-GAMBLER to go into. But now let's get into the fact that you can actually gamble on.
You can actually bet. You can actually bet on Korean baseball.
Absolutely.
You bet on the pitchers like you do here.
You got everything. I mean, it's and I've actually been going through, and there have been some of these guys who've been getting it right. But you can go
why did we put Jason Miller? This is terrible putting Jason Miller on this. It's a slippery slope. It's a slippery slope.
I read the disclaimer. Hold on, let me write this down again. 1-800.
Kelly, we're sorry. We apologize.
Pop this into my phone here. No, but. Look, but this is they're doing it so there's no fans in the stands, and there's a great picture on the front page of the FT yesterday. If you still have it handy, Steve, they have these cutouts of people.
So first, when I first saw this, I didn't even know what it was until the guy said, "Okay, so this is where we've come to as a culture, as the Judeo-Christian West and the industrial democracies. This is Korean baseball. These are all cutouts that are going to sit in the stands, right? Which I guess they're going to pipe in crowd noise, and this is where we are."
Because
you got to embrace this. You got to get angry. You got to see where we are. We're going to have cutouts.
So there are all these websites and different things out there saying, which Korean baseball team would you most likely support? And the thing is, I thought it was interesting. There are all these the nuances. I'm kind of nerding out on it the last day or so. But much as so for English football or soccer's football, we call it here, and
Tottenham Hotspurs.
Yeah. Whereas you always talk about the city, but or in a lot of places, but not necessarily the mascot, so to speak.
Yeah.
And so there you talk about the mascot but not the city. So you're the heroes or you're the Tigers, but you never say I'm the Seoul heroes or the Incheon Tigers or something like that. But the game's much higher scoring, usually average about 9 runs a game. There are a handful of former major league players that are over there. The Kawoom Heroes.
Well, the reason that the score, so a couple of guys, I told them we were going to do this. They sent me. They said the reason is in the first couple of innings, it's as good as Major League Baseball, the pitching and everything like that. But the relief pitchers are all dogs, so everybody gets lit up. Everybody gets lit up in the fun, and that's why people stayed. You don't have anybody leaving in the 7th inning like in Dodger Stadium. You stay because all the action's in the last innings because you get these dogs coming out there and everybody's going yard.
Oh, and it's a party environment. People got the thunder sticks. They're out there making noise. Individual players.
The vuvuzela.
Oh yeah. Oh, those things are great. You got people out there that have individual chants for all the players, and basically, I mean, they're just rocking all around. But look, you can go on DraftKings, you can go all these sites to say which team should you be supporting. Only thing I'll say is the merch is really trifling. So I went to go. So the Kawoom Heroes, which is going to be my new squad, because some write up said they're the closest to the Washington Nationals. They always get to the championship. Or the last 2 years, they haven't been able to win it. They've had the rookie. They have the 2016, 2017 rookies of the year that are on their squad, but they just haven't been able to get over the top. They're kind of the lovable underdogs that are seen as really being the players. They're 2-1 so far this season. But you go and try to find a decent T-shirt or a hat. There's nothing. They really have to up their game when it comes to the gear. That's the one thing that
don't have the merch, no swag.
No, but ESPN. So they're showing it. So they're doing the live play at like 1 a.m. But then the replay, 5:30 a.m. So they're on.
Okay, so your shelter in place, the work on oneself to make oneself better at the end of this. If you're up watching the Korean baseball live at 1 a.m, your program's not working. Okay, you've got to rethink that. This is not the program. You got to watch it on the replay or watch it for the highlights, right?
Yeah, and look, people have broken this down. I mean, if you happen to be betting on the Korean baseball organization, home teams won at a 546 clip in 2019, which is higher than the Major Leagues baseball, which is a 530. So there are some details there. You want to do your research before you're putting any legal authorized bets.
With a couple of minutes left, culturally, sports is very important to modern society. Whether it's English, it's soccer in England, or rugby in other parts of the world, baseball, American football, college football, cricket. When are we going to get back to this? When are we going to do the Open that actually has us back to that kind of normal thing that binds us together as communities?
Well, one thing that's sort of interesting that people should know: baseball is a game of statistics. Right. We know what the data is. We all know how to do a scorecard. There's a very interesting study that came out today studying the Imperial College of London, Ferguson's model. And a former engineer from Google went through it. He said the original was a single 15,000-line file that had been worked on for decades. This is considered extremely poor practice. Due to bugs, the code can produce very different results given identical inputs. They routinely act as if this is unimportant. The problem makes the code unusable for scientific purposes, given that a key part of the scientific method is the ability to replicate results. Now we're finding out what the models are. Let's hold these people to account.
Is Imperial College putting that all out, the back part of that, so that people can get into it? Because they did put out the back part of the Wharton, I think, in one of a hashtag war and pandemic, caught it right away. The black box is actually out there for you guys to look at.
Actually, the Imperial College has not released the original code, and surprise, Microsoft engineers have been helping them polish it up for the last month, and they still won't release it.
Neil Ferguson is too busy COVIDing his neighbor's wife.
That's the new meme.
By the way, speaking of merch, we have increasing calls for War Room merch. Producer Vish. I asked you about it a couple of times. You're going to put him on blast on air.
No. Vish gets to do that as soon as he gets the screen door done for the War Room, right? Got to have nice breezes through here. Okay, see you tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. We're going to go through all the economic analysis tomorrow morning and Huawei. See you tomorrow.